You know, every year we see Holy Week celebrated, a story we think we all know. But what if there's another layer to it? A much deeper, more personal meaning hidden right beneath the surface. Today, we're going to peel back those layers and look at this ancient drama not as history, but as a roadmap for our own minds.
So yeah, that's the big question, right? What if this entire story isn't about something that happened 2,000 years ago, but is actually a user manual for what's happening inside you right now? It's basically an incredibly powerful allegory for mastering the one thing we all struggle with, our own consciousness.
All right, so here's our game plan. We're going to start by looking at this as a map for inner change. Then we'll talk about taming the inner donkey. Yeah, you heard that right. After that, we face off against 3 inner traders, dive into the alchemy of the cross, and finally, explore what it means to achieve a resurrection of consciousness.
So, to even begin to read this map, we first have to get one thing straight. Who is the hero of this story? And let me tell you, in this interpretation, it's not some figure from the past. No, it's a force that's alive inside of you, right this second.
Okay, and this is where things get really interesting. The Christ we're talking about here isn't a person, but an impersonal universal force. Think of it like a sacred fire, a revolutionary energy that has the power to create and to destroy. It's this incredible potential for a higher consciousness that's just kind of lying dormant in all of us, waiting to be awakened.
And get this idea isn't new or unique at all. It's a universal archetype. You look at Egypt, they had Horus. The Greeks had Hercules. Persia had Mithra. India had Krishna. Even the dragon in China carries the same kind of transformative energy. It seems to be a fundamental part of the human story of self-realization.
So how does a journey like this even begin? Well, just like any epic quest, you can't just jump in. You've got to prepare. And in this inner drama, the very first step is maybe the hardest, starting the work of taming our own wild and unruly minds.
And that preparation starts with a really powerful symbolic act on Ash Wednesday. This isn't just a religious ritual. It represents the moment we make a conscious decision to take our false self, all our pride, our fears, our desires, the whole ego, and commit to turning it into ashes. It's a promise to start looking at ourselves honestly. Okay, so after that commitment, we get to Palm Sunday. And the triumphant entry isn't about a parade into a city. Symbolically, Jerusalem is your physical body. And that divine Christ force, it needs to enter your body, but it can't just walk in. It has to ride the donkey. And what's the donkey? It's our stubborn, chaotic, untamed mind. So taming that mind isn't just a good idea, it's the absolute requirement for this journey to even begin.
So once you're on the path, the real battle begins. And spoiler alert, the enemy isn't out there somewhere, it's inside. We have to face these internal saboteurs, these inner demons that are constantly trying to betray our highest potential.
Wow, and this breakdown is so incredibly practical. These aren't just characters in a story, they are 3 stages of a psychological process we go through all the time. First, you've got Judas, the demon of desire. That's the initial spark, that flash of anger, that sudden craving. Then comes Pilate, the demon of the mind. That's the little voice that justifies it, that says, "Go on, you deserve it," and then washes its hands of any responsibility. And finally, Caiaphas, the demon of ill will. That's the moment you actually decide to act on it, fully committing the error and betraying your better self.
And this is the part that really hits home. This so-called assassination isn't some historical event that happened once. It's happening inside us, moment by moment, every single day. Every time you let a negative impulse take over, you are reenacting this betrayal. Those 3 traitors are right there, sabotaging your inner potential.
All right, so all of this inner conflict leads to the absolute climax of the story, the crucifixion. But in this psychological drama, the cross isn't an instrument of execution. It's an alchemical laboratory. It's the place where the lead of our ego can be transformed into the gold of true consciousness.
But right before that final test, there's the Last Supper. And again, this isn't about food. The bread is symbolic of the spiritual wisdom we need to take in, to eat. And the wine, that represents our own vital, creative life force, our sexual energy, that has to be refined and elevated or transmuted. It's the final lesson on how to fuel the transformation.
So what about those 5,000 lashes we hear about? Are we talking about a literal whip? Not in this view.
Those 5,000 lashes represent the thousands of little desires and attachments that whip at our consciousness every single day. Every single craving, every frustration, every judgment. They are the lashes that torture our inner peace. Okay, so the cross itself, forget what you think you know. In this view, it's a powerful alchemical formula. The vertical beam represents the masculine force, and the horizontal beam is the feminine. Where they join, that's the point of creation, the union of opposites. The ordeal itself, being on the cross, is about voluntarily and patiently enduring life's difficulties to purify ourselves. It's on this cross that our ego has to be crucified so that something much higher can finally be born from within.
And speaking of secrets, check this out. That sign on the cross, INRI, traditionally it's seen as a title, but in this esoteric view, it's an alchemical acronym for a Latin phrase, Ignis Natura Renovator Integra. And what does that mean? The fire renews nature completely. It's the secret formula, right there in plain sight. Through this inner fire, this conscious work, our entire psychological nature can be made new.
So after all that, after the ordeal on the cross, what happens? This is where we get to the resurrection. And it's not the revival of a physical body, but the birth of a completely new way of being.
But let's be super clear. We're not talking about a body coming back to life here. This resurrection is purely psychological. It's what happens when you finally eliminate not just the surface-level flaws, but the deep, deep root causes of the ego, what are sometimes called the causal eyes. Once those roots are gone, what's left is a pure, unified, totally awake consciousness.
And this is the final, kind of startling takeaway. Why does any of this matter? Because from this viewpoint, until we go through this inner death and rebirth, we're all just, well, the walking dead. We're living trapped inside the tomb of our own ego, asleep, in a state of fear, completely cut off from our real potential.
So at the end of the day, this isn't about what you believe about history. It's a mirror. It's a map of the soul. And the real question it asks is one we have to answer for ourselves. Looking at this journey, from taming the mind to confronting the inner traitors to facing the cross, which stage are you on right now?